Welcome to Maple Heights. The moving truck rumbled to a stop in front of 1327 Rose Willow Lane, its diesel breath rising in the early morning sun. Marcus Taylor stepped out of his black SUV, took a deep breath, and smiled. The air smelled clean, with just a hint of fresh-cut grass and blooming roses. Birds chirped from neatly trimmed dogwood trees that lined both sides of the wide, clean street. It was perfect. After a decade of long hours in hospital ERs and private practice shifts, Marcus, now 36, was finally home. Not just a home, but his home. A charming two-story colonial with a wraparound porch, navy blue siding, and crisp white shutters. He had signed the papers 2 weeks ago, a mix of pride and disbelief running through him when the realtor handed over the keys. Maple Heights was quiet, upscale, and a step up from the apartment he'd been renting near downtown Atlanta. "First day of the rest of your life," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck before reaching into the back seat for his French press and bag of beans. No way he was starting this day without coffee, even if the kitchen wasn't fully set up yet. Inside, the house still smelled faintly of fresh paint and pine. Light streamed through the bay windows, illuminating the gleaming hardwood floors. As he walked through the empty living room, he could already picture the couch he'd bought online arriving this afternoon, the 65-inch TV mounted above the fireplace, a bookshelf along the far wall filled with his favorite biographies and medical journals. A knock on the open front door interrupted the daydream. "Hey there," a woman's voice said, bright but clipped. Marcus turned to see a woman in her early 50s, short blonde bob, polo shirt tucked into khaki capris. She carried a clipboard, her expression polite but unreadable. "I'm Cynthia Bauer, president of the Maple Heights Homeowners Association. Just want to say welcome, and give you the HOA welcome packet." She handed him a thick folder. Marcus took it, still holding his coffee mug. "Thanks. Nice to meet you." Her eyes briefly scanned the interior. "Moving in today, I take it?"
Yep.
"Truck's already here." She gave a small nod. "Just so you're aware, move-ins require a 72-hour notice to the HOA, and the truck should be parked no longer than 4 hours in front of the property." Marcus blinked. "Oh, I didn't realize. I spoke with my realtor and thought everything was good." Cynthia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. You'll find all the guidelines in the packet. We're very proud of how orderly Maple Heights is." As she turned to leave, she paused. "Also, please make sure no boxes are left on the lawn. We had an issue last year with someone attracting ants." "I'll keep that in mind," Marcus said, smiling to diffuse the stiffness. She left without another word. As the moving team began unloading boxes, Marcus stood on the porch sipping his coffee, watching the neighborhood come alive. Sprinklers kicked on in perfect synchronicity. A golden retriever trotted beside a jogger in a matching tracksuit. A man across the street gave a small wave, but didn't smile. Maple Heights was beautiful, no doubt, but it also felt watched. He noticed something else too. He was the only black man on the street. Growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina, Marcus had learned early how to walk the line. His father, a history teacher, and his mother, a nurse, raised him to be twice as good, twice as prepared, and 3 times as calm. "Be excellent, but invisible," his mother would whisper when he went to a new school or joined a new club. That mindset had gotten him through med school, his residency, and now here, to this pristine neighborhood. Still, some things never changed. As he directed the movers on where to stack the boxes inside, he noticed a man with graying hair and a golf visor standing on his front porch, arms crossed. Another woman walking her dog slowed just a little as she passed his house, her eyes flicking from the truck to Marcus and back again. By noon, everything felt like it was in motion. Furniture slowly made its way in. The Wi-Fi technician came and went. Marcus was organizing the kitchen when his phone buzzed with a text from his friend Jordan. "You settle in yet? Place still look like Stepford? LOL." Marcus laughed quietly and typed back.
Yep.
"Beautiful. A little too neat. Already met the HOA president. Gave me rules before she said welcome."
Ha.
"Watch yourself, man. Some of these neighborhoods aren't built for us. Even when we can afford them." Marcus didn't respond right away. Instead, he glanced outside. Cynthia was now talking to the man with the golf visor. They both glanced his way before resuming conversation. The house was his. The mortgage was in his name. The deed notarized. He'd worked too long and hard to question where he belonged. But the small knot forming in his chest told him this wasn't going to be the peaceful move-in he'd imagined. Rules and warnings. The next morning brought sunshine and the smell of honeysuckle drifting through the open window. Marcus stretched, still sore from lifting boxes, but mentally refreshed. The house was coming together, slowly, but it was taking shape. His favorite mug now sat in the cupboard, his Bluetooth speakers were set up in the living room, and his framed diplomas hung in the hallway. For the first time in years, he could almost say he felt settled. He opened the front door to grab the newspaper, still in his pajamas. A pale yellow envelope taped to his mailbox caught his eye. Notice of violation, Maple Heights HOA. It read in bold lettering across the top. Frowning, Marcus tore it open and read. Violation number 1. Unapproved landscaping alteration. Please remove decorative planter boxes until proper application has been submitted. Violation number 2. Moving truck exceeded allotted time parked in front of residence. Future infractions may result in fines. Planter boxes? The ones he'd inherited from the previous owner and hadn't even touched yet? And the truck. He remembered the movers pulling out just before noon. He sighed, setting the letter on the kitchen counter. It wasn't about the boxes. It wasn't about the truck. This was something else, an introduction maybe, a way of letting him know that someone was watching. Outside, the street looked as it always did, quiet, pristine, manicured to perfection. Lawns trimmed at uniform heights, American flags fluttering on porches, garden gnomes posed like frozen sentinels. It reminded Marcus of a set from a commercial, too polished to feel real. By mid-morning, Marcus was back at work setting up his home office. He heard a knock at the door and opened it to find a young black delivery driver standing with a large Amazon box. "Morning," the driver said. "You Marcus?"
Yep.
"Thanks." As Marcus signed, the driver leaned in slightly. "Beautiful neighborhood, huh?" "It is." The man glanced over his shoulder. "Be careful, though. My cousin used to do maintenance out here. He quit. Said the folks around here don't like people who look like us unless we're carrying a ladder." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" "Dead serious. HOA even tried to fine a black woman last year for hanging her wind chimes. Called them unauthorized noisemakers." Marcus chuckled bitterly. "You're kidding." "Wish I was. Good luck, man." As the driver walked back to his van, Marcus stood silently for a moment, watching. Wind chimes, planter boxes, parking rules, it wasn't about order. It was about control. That evening, as he took a break and walked to the corner for fresh air, he noticed something else. On his block of 12 houses, only one other family was black. A woman in her 40s, elegant, with sharp cheekbones and a no-nonsense gait, was watering her rose bushes. She didn't wave when she saw Marcus, but she did nod. A subtle gesture of recognition. Maybe even warning. He approached her cautiously. "Evening. I'm Marcus, just moved into 1327. She set the watering can down, sizing him up. "I know. I'm Patrice. I live at 1321. Been here 9 years. 9 years?
Wow.
That's impressive." Her lips curved into a wry smile. "Impressive that I lasted, or that I stayed?" Marcus smiled. "I'll let you decide." A moment passed before she added, "They watch us differently here. I don't mean with binoculars or cameras, though don't rule that out. I mean socially. There's an assumption that we're temporary, or that we're here by accident. And if we challenge that, if we act like we belong, they push back." Marcus nodded, the letter from the HOA fresh in his memory. Patrice continued, "Don't give them anything. Don't leave garbage cans out 5 minutes past pickup. Don't hang lights before December 1st. Don't play music above a whisper. They'll twist the rules to fit the story they want. Thanks for the warning. You shouldn't need one." As Marcus walked back home, dusk settling in around the perfectly aligned rooftops, he couldn't help but feel the neighborhood had two realities. One was the brochure version, safe, beautiful, governed by order. The other was quieter, harder to name, but no less real. It was the way neighbors looked just a second too long. The way the HOA's words were wrapped in polite bureaucracy, but wielded like weapons. The way the very air seemed to resist change. Later that night, as he scrolled through HOA regulations online, he found a line that struck him. All homeowners must maintain community standards to ensure the integrity, beauty, and cultural values of Maple Heights. Cultural values. What did that mean? Whose culture? Whose values? Marcus closed his laptop. He had moved here for peace, space to breathe, to build, to just be. But already, he sensed that Maple Heights wouldn't let him live quietly. Not unless he played a part. And Marcus had never been good at pretending. Lines drawn. The sun had barely crested over the rooftops when Marcus woke up to a dull knocking at the door. Still rubbing sleep from his eyes, he threw on a hoodie and shuffled down the stairs. He opened the door to find two uniformed police officers standing on his porch. "Morning," said the taller one, a middle-aged white man with a calm but firm voice. "Are you the resident of this property?" Marcus blinked.
Yeah.
"I moved in 2 days ago." The second officer, a younger Latina woman, gave him a once-over before asking, "Do you have identification?" "Proof of residency." Marcus's heart sank. "Excuse me?" "We received a call from a concerned neighbor," the older officer explained. "Said someone was trespassing here, possibly breaking into the home. Said the house was supposed to be vacant." Marcus stared at them, stunned for a moment, before quietly turning and walking back inside. He returned with his wallet, the house deed, and a copy of the closing documents still sitting on the counter.
"Here.
"I own the house. The mortgage is in my name. I closed last Friday." The officers reviewed the papers, exchanging glances. The younger officer nodded after scanning the documents. "Looks legitimate," she said, her tone softening. "Of course it's legitimate," Marcus said, voice low but taut with restrained anger. "Who made the call?" "We're not authorized to disclose that," the older officer replied. But Marcus already knew. As the officers left with mumbled apologies and polite nods, he stepped outside. Cynthia Bauer was standing across the street in her yard, holding a ceramic coffee mug like a prop in a drama. The man with the golf visor stood beside her, arms folded. They didn't smile. They didn't wave. They just watched. That was the moment Marcus understood. It wasn't about planter boxes. It wasn't about HOA forms or emails or welcome packets. It was about ownership, about presence. He wasn't just seen as new. He was seen as uninvited. That afternoon, he called his friend Jordan and told him everything. "They called the cops on you?" Jordan's voice cracked over the phone.
"Bro.
"That's not just hostile. That's dangerous. I didn't even do anything. I was literally sleeping. You need to start documenting everything. Every letter. Every email. Every comment. Don't just let this slide." "I don't plan to." After the call, Marcus walked through the house, taking it in. The light still poured through the windows. The hardwood still gleamed. But something had shifted. The walls felt thinner now, like the house could no longer protect him from the outside. He sat on the porch for a while, laptop in hand, sipping tea. His eyes scanned the HOA bylaws again, this time with a highlighter. And there it was, buried under clauses about mailbox dimensions and lawn care. The HOA board reserves the right to intervene in the event of suspected unauthorized occupancy or activity that threatens the stability of the community. "Stability," he murmured aloud. Two kids zipped by on bikes, their laughter echoing down the sidewalk. Across the street, a pair of white women stood chatting under a dogwood tree. One pointed subtly in his direction. He was being made into an issue, a disruption to the illusion of control Maple Heights so fiercely upheld. That evening, he received another envelope on his door, this one more direct. "Notice of immediate review. It has come to our attention that your residency may not have followed proper HOA onboarding procedures. Until our board has completed its review, any additional modifications or visible activity on the premises is discouraged." Marcus laughed bitterly. Visible activity. He wasn't just being policed. He was being erased. He sent an email to the HOA board requesting a formal meeting and CC'd his real estate agent and attorney. He didn't bother with polite language. I am the legal owner of 1327 Rosewillow Lane. I do not need permission to exist. Any further harassment will be documented and addressed through the appropriate legal channels. That night, the porch light stayed on. At 10:12 p.m., someone walked by slowly, phone in hand. Marcus watched from behind the curtain. They paused at the edge of his lawn, turned, and walked back. A silent message, "We see you." But Marcus was done playing defense. The next morning, he installed a Ring doorbell camera, placed security signage near the garage, and added motion-sensitive lighting in the backyard. Across the street, Cynthia stood at her mailbox, arms folded once again. This time, Marcus looked directly at her, met her eyes, and didn't blink. "I live here," he said aloud, not just for her, but for himself. "I belong here." The morning after the police visit and the HOA's latest notice, Marcus sat in his kitchen, watching sunlight scatter across the marble countertops like nothing had happened. The coffee in his mug was strong and dark, but the aftertaste of the past few days lingered bitter on his tongue. The house was still beautiful, still quiet, still exactly what he dreamed about all those years pulling night shifts and studying between rounds. But now it felt like a fortress. And a battlefield. A soft knock broke the stillness. Marcus opened the door, cautious, only to find Patrice from next door holding a Tupperware container. "Apple cobbler," she said. "I make one for all new neighbors. Took me a few days to convince myself you'd still be here." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You thought I'd leave already? Most people do." She handed over the container. "But I'm glad you didn't." He gestured for her to come in. They sat at the kitchen island, sharing the dessert straight from the tray. It was warm, cinnamon-rich, and oddly comforting. "I know you probably don't want advice," Patrice said between bites, "but the first time they called code enforcement on me, I cried. Right on my front porch. And then I called a local reporter." Marcus blinked. "Really?" "Front page of the community section," she said with a smirk. "After that, they got quieter. Not kinder. Just more cautious." He leaned back, chewing slowly. "I'm not looking for a fight. I just want to live in peace." "I know," she said. "We all do. But you have to understand something, Marcus. Peace isn't something they give. It's something you claim." That afternoon, Marcus opened his laptop and began typing. The words came fast. He wrote a formal complaint to the city's Human Relations Commission. He filed a report with the Fair Housing Office. He sent a letter to the HOA board, this time attaching legal language and referencing potential violations of the Civil Rights Act. Then he wrote one more thing, a public post on Nextdoor. To the residents of Maple Heights. "My name is Marcus Taylor. I'm your neighbor. I bought my home legally, moved in peacefully, and hope to begin a new chapter here. Instead, I was met with suspicion, surveillance, and even a police visit prompted by a false report. I am not a threat. I am not a trespasser. I am a doctor, a citizen, and most importantly, your equal. If our community is truly committed to its values, those values must include fairness, inclusion, and accountability. I'm not going anywhere." He didn't expect it to go viral, but by the end of the day, it had over 100 comments. Some were supportive. "Thank you for speaking up. I'm so sorry this happened to you. We need more people like you in this neighborhood." Others were passive-aggressive. "It's a shame people always assume racism. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. We all have to follow the rules. That's what makes Maple Heights great." And a few were openly hostile. "If you don't like it here, maybe you should move." But Marcus didn't flinch. He printed out his home deed and framed it. He placed it on the entryway table, just behind the Ring camera, which blinked gently whenever someone passed too close. The following week, his attorney sent an official cease and desist letter to the HOA board, warning against further harassment or attempts to interfere with his peaceful enjoyment of property. The language was clear, direct, and legally binding. Something shifted. Cynthia didn't wave. But she stopped staring. The man in the golf visor crossed the street one morning and, without making eye contact, muttered, "Didn't mean for things to go that far." Marcus replied, "They did." Even the tone of the weekly HOA bulletins changed. Less language about preserving culture. More reminders about transparency, communication, and fairness. One quiet Saturday, as Marcus watered the shrubs in his front yard, a white woman from 2 blocks over walked by with her daughter. "You're the one who posted on Nextdoor, right?" she asked.
Yeah.
"That was me." "Thanks for doing that," she said. "We've been here 6 years. My husband's Korean, and the HOA fined us 3 times in 1 month when we first moved in. We didn't know who to talk to. But now, people are paying attention." Marcus nodded. "Good. It's time." By the 3rd week, the street felt different. Not warmer, not friendlier, but quieter in a better way. As if a pressure valve had been released. Neighbors still watched, but less. The silence didn't feel like erasure anymore. It felt like space. Space to breathe.
Space to grow.
Space to live. That evening, Marcus stood on his porch as dusk draped the neighborhood in gold. Wind stirred the trees. Kids laughed down the block. The lights in his home glowed behind him, steady and warm. He belonged here, not because he had to prove it, but because he always had.